that's the power you have when you're at the top, right? Like everyone will watch you at all times. So my job was to make sure to take advantage of that.
How did that attitude as a pro player transfer into what you're doing right now?
There are good and bad companies in this world. So only take volunteer positions where you think you can actually learn something.
Does your structure and the way you work influence the kind of studios and titles you're after?
As long as I can spread knowledge and help people while at the same time learning new knowledge myself, I'm in a happy space.
Welcome to Biz Dev Quest Episode 5, the podcast about video games business people and their quest for success. I'm your host, Gianpaolo Vernocchi, and my guest today is Pontus Mähler, Director of Business Development of GTR, which is a business accelerator that works and invests in developers from all over the world. I'm really excited about today's episode because it really encapsulates a journey, a quest. Pontus started out as a pro player of Heroes of Newerth before helping with balancing as a volunteer, which then led him to helping with game design, which led into being the captain and CEO of an eSports team, which led into many different other avenues that brought him here. We only touched briefly on Pontus' history as I was really curious to pick his brain about various topics such as volunteering and investing. But in the end, I felt really proud of this episode because in essence, it's what Biz Dev Quest is all about. Every one of us is in a different quest, but like Steve Jobs said, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to move forward, trusting that the dots will connect in your future. I always thought it was a powerful message, and I guess it is my message for you today. As always, please let me know what you think about the podcast on Facebook and Twitter. And now let's get to the episode. All right, Pontus, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you. No, I'm very good. It's been a very colorful weekend. Had a couple of friends coming over, just having a good time, which is always nice, especially during this virus period. We're lucky enough, or at least I'm lucky enough, to live in a country where the virus is kind of non-existent at the moment. So life goes on as normal here now. You can go out, you can do whatever whatever you want to do, and that's of course super nice for us. Less nice for other people. So I'm good. Yeah. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Thank you. Here in Italy, we're not as lucky, I would say. It's impressive how we're managing it better than other countries. Italy is notorious for their inefficiency, but apparently this time around we're doing slightly better. So that's good. You've been in that part of the world for a while now, right? How many years has been?
Yeah, so I've been going back and forth to Thailand for almost 8 years. So with my old career, I came here roughly 2 or 3 times a year. And nowadays, I've been living here full time. It's August now, so I guess next month it's been 4 years exactly. Unless it's been 5, I could have lost time. But I think it's been 4. Yeah, 4 years. Yeah.
Well, you were pretty young when you moved in, and young people are kind of like cats. They always fall on their feet. But how was the adjustment for you, if there was any?
Oh no, it was very hard to adjust generally. But the thing is that when I was in my old career again, like when I was a pro gamer, so to speak, I came here, built up a network, got friends, way before I even moved here. So, I'll give you a funny story. Was that this whole moving here thing was kind of not really planned. I was basically out with my best friend, whose name is coincidentally also Pontus, and we were just having dinner, some drinks and stuff, and having a good night. And then he basically just threw it out randomly, like, why don't you move to Thailand? I mean, most of your fan base is there anyway. You have contacts there, and in Sweden it's kind of like boring, and I like an active lifestyle. And then I moved like a month later, and I landed here, and you're talking about adjustment, with a signed deal that was supposed to get me a condo and everything set up, like work visa and so forth. And I've very quickly learned that it's structured differently over here than it is in Europe, where oral agreements aren't as set in stone, so to speak. It was an oral and a signed agreement, but there was parts missing in the signed document, I guess. So in retrospect, I was being a stupid. But once I came here and fell on my just came here and things went crazy, I just reached out to people that I knew, and a week later I had a new condo. They were taking care of me. I reached out to my contacts at Garena, and he hooked me up with a Thai company that I then started working for. So they're very accommodating here. They want to take care of you. They want to help you, and I love that part. But the hardest adjustment was work ethics, honestly, because food, amazing. I think anyone who's been to Thailand can say that Thai food is absolutely incredible. It's cheap, it's easy to make, it's relatively healthy, minus all these spices and sugar they throw in there. But it's nice, right? So very easy. The people accommodating, easy. But work ethics took me almost like a year to get used to, because I mean, you're from Italy, right? So you know how it works. You book a meeting at 2 p.m. You're there at 2 p.m. If you're going to be late, 5-10 minutes, you should send like a heads up. And if there was an emergency, then okay, that happens, right? But what I quickly learned my first 6 months is that no one is ever on time.
Well,
Like ever.
I mean, you said you're from Italy. I can tell you that here in Italy is almost like you're describing it. I mean, if we book a meeting at 2 p.m., I mean, we might be there at 2:05, 2:10. Italians are not very good at that. I went to a conference one time, and the conference started at 5, and I was the only one there sitting, in the audience. I was like, man, maybe I am in the wrong building or something. But no, there were just everybody was in other parts of the building having coffee, chatting. I was like, okay. So you were saying how that affected you?
Yeah, so I'm not talking 5 or 10 minutes. I'm talking 40 minutes and 30 minutes, and I'm talking 50 minutes, and even one time an hour.
Oh.
So, and the excuse is always the same. It's like, I'm stuck in traffic. So, okay, the traffic in Bangkok is probably the second worst in the world, but I'm a random foreigner who just moved here and I'm on time. So what kind of excuse is that, right? Like, I calculate very easy. You open Google Maps. Okay, you can take a taxi or a bike or a train. How do I get there on time? Calculate, go there, be done with it. But they just kept being late over and over. And to this date, 4 years being here, this is still the same with any Thai meeting that I have. Okay, that's not fair. 8 out of 10 meetings. That's how often it is.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, learning the work ethics here, about starting to accept it and cooling down, because if this was Europe, I would literally just walk out and leave.
Right, yeah.
That's how I would do it in Europe. But I'm not going to take this like... Oh, sorry for that. But yeah, I'm not going to take this. But here, I asked around. I asked all my friends. I asked Karina, like, is this really normal? And they're like, yeah. I mean, that's how the lifestyle is here. Like, people will be late, and they will still expect you to be there, and you just gonna have to deal with it. And yeah, I guess I've gotten used to it, but I'm still on time to this day. Sometimes I did like some funny like tests. So I showed up late to one of my meetings 30 minutes once, and he still wasn't there. And he came 5 minutes after me, and I told him that I've been waiting here for an hour, man. Like, this is like not respectable. Just to see if it actually went both ways. And yeah,
that's pretty funny.
It's tough, man.
Yeah,
it's tough. Like, yeah.
That's pretty funny. You mentioned there in passing your past as a pro player in esports. You were a competitive Heroes of Newerth player, and you were at one point the best jungler in the world, if I'm not mistaken. So it is fair to say that you were one of the best in the world at that game at some point. And I have a fascination for people who are at the best, who are the best at something. Okay, now we can say, well, your Heroes of Newerth is not as I don't know, maybe prestigious as being the top tennis player in the world, but who cares? You're still the best at something. And at some point, a lot of players were after what you had, and you were the best. So first of all, first question for you is, because I had to deal with a lot of pro players in the past. How aware were you of the fact that you were one of the best in the world? And did you do anything in particular to stay at that level? How did your mindset change from I'm just chasing to now I'm at the top?
Yeah, so I'm actually a very analytical person in general, right? I did stock trading as well before, during my pro gaming career on the side. And everything about me is analyzing things. So I realized I was the best when I was becoming the innovator. So the way that I became like the best player in the world, I was, and you're right, there was the best jungler in the world for 4 years in a row. So I did keep that title for a long time. And it was basically like the way I got there was by watching other pro players, taking their strategies, innovating them, and like going to, so in a speed run, for example, but in this case, a jungle, I'll see like, how did he do his rotation? How did he actually come to level 6, for example, in these 3 minutes and 30 seconds? And how can I beat him? So I did that for every single player, like the top players, and for every single hero in the game until no one could beat me. Like I had the highest strategies, I had the best time with pretty much any hero in the game, and that was by analyzing other people. Once you got to that point, right? Once you were the fastest, so to speak, it's more about the actual decisions you make within the game. It's like, how are you planning your strategy? When are you pushing? When are you going to be ganking? All of that. And before, like when you're not a pro gamer, you kind of all do it all on what do you call it? On
Autopilot?
Like on autopilot. You kind of think like, oh, I'm going to gank at 4 minutes. I'm going to gank at 4:30. But what you're forgetting is that if you actually have a pattern, people will analyze it, find it, and it's not going to work anymore.
Right.
So you need to continuously innovate every single game. You need to change up your pattern. You need to buy different items. You need to go in different places. And at one point, I realized that, okay, now I have the fastest times. I'm innovating, and people are copying me. Like the pro gamers I was looking up to, that I was researching, were now copying me instead. So every single strategy, like when we played against an enemy team or when I watched a YouTube match of another team, they were using my rotations. They were using my patterns. And that's when I realized, oh, holy, sorry. Like, holy damn, like I'm now the innovator. And I've never really been that good of an innovator. Like I'm good at like analyzing what's there and making it better and improving it. But now I'm in a position where I'm the one deciding the metagame. I'm the one deciding which hero is good.
Right.
And that was kind of like at the point I'm like, okay, now what? And then after that, I started doing like a lot of really stupid things. So before, which is cool in retrospect, is like before we were playing against a big team, I would like intentionally stream the matches because they always watch your stream, and I would either throw or make bad decisions or follow the exact same pattern.
I love it.
So there was one day where we had a huge match the next day. I streamed the whole day before, playing two of the same heroes, going the exact same rotation at the exact same minute. And then they were expecting that. So the next day when we played against them, they were making movements expecting that, but I was doing the opposite. So I caught them off guard like several times during the game.
I love it.
And that's like, that's the power you have when you're at the top, right? Like everyone will watch you at all times. So my job was to make sure to take advantage of that, show myself as much as possible, make stupid rotations, buy stupid items before big games, because they never actually realized it was intentional. And especially because there's a language barrier, right? Because the biggest teams in Han were Asian and they didn't speak very great English. So they couldn't understand everything I was saying either. So they were only looking at my gameplay. And that's like a huge strength to have. But yeah, anyway.
Well, no, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I had mostly my experience with the fighting game community and the pro players there. And in the fighting game community, there's a lot of, well, now it's getting nerfed, I would say, but there was a lot of animosity. There was a lot of like personas and egos, and it was actually pretty funny. Like it was akin to pro wrestling in a way, where the top personality would be very outspoken and be like, I'm the best, nobody can beat me. And the other player would come up and be like, no, you're a scrub and stuff like that. And it would go back and forth and they would play it out. And that was funny. But I never saw it happen in other games, also mostly because usually the developer is very involved and like LCS is very clean, and that happens everywhere. Was it the same back then for Heroes of Newerth?
It really depends on what type of personality you are, right? That's honestly what it comes down to. And yeah, I was actually a victim of one of those. So my first, like when I broke out, like when I became this is Zlapped, like when people started knowing my name, was during DreamHack Winter, I think 2012 or 2013. I can't exactly recall. And basically every single player in the entire community thought it was a fluke that we qualified. Because I was the captain of that team. No one had ever really heard of me. Yeah, maybe they've seen me, but I was nobody. My team members were nobodies. And yeah, we qualified to the top 8 to play at the offline LAN. And then what happened there was that we started destroying everyone. Like it wasn't fair games. It was like 15, 20, 25 minutes. We're destroying you. And that was to every top team at that entire event. However, the enemy captain was really smart. So his name was Swindlemelons. For Dota players, he's called Kyle. You guys probably know him. He's a big figure right now. He was sitting behind me at every match, like watching what I was doing, analyzing what I was doing. And sometimes he would even like say stuff like after the game, oh, nicely done. Like, why did you do this? And back then, I was kind of like, he's an authority over me. He's a better player than me. He's a bigger thing. So I'm just going to talk to him. But he was actually doing research. So when we came to the finals, he'd been so nice the whole time. He'd been very pushed up. But when we came to the finals, the first match happened and he banned every strategy that we'd had for that event because he'd watched everything we were doing. He'd been talking to me. And then he threw in a comment like, well, nicely paid, Zlapped.
Ooh, okay.
Just to screw with me, right? So we ended up getting humiliated on stage. We made it all the way to the finals. People were super hyped. The underdogs are winning. And then the finals were the most pathetic finals of history. So, yes, it is there. Mind games is very important. But I would say, at least in the MOBA community, it's less aggro. It's more mind games, getting into that head, trying to make them think about a hero or a strategy, or doing what I did, stream the day before, right?
Right.
It's more the actions you take rather than the words. Yeah, there were, a couple of rivalries and there were some angry words being thrown out, but never anything super bad. It's never been it's not, the hype is more between the teams themselves about, flaming each other in the chat, dropping memes, dropping taunts, that is very a common occurrence, but it's usually during the games, not before or after.
Right. You sound very confident in my personal definition of confidence, which is you know exactly where you stand in the food chain. If you are the best, you know that you're the best. But if you are just somebody chasing and coming after, you kind of know where you are. And that is very interesting to me to know how that experience as a pro player, that attitude as a pro player, transferred into what you're doing right now. You're currently director of business development at GTR, and since then let's say you've moved from esports and pro gaming into game development and actually supporting game developers and everything that revolves around that. But that competitive player mentality that I still have a little bit, I'm sure it's still there. I'm sure it's oh, this is the best. Oh, no, this is the worst. Oh, this sucks and stuff like that. How did that translate into what you're doing right now?
Well, I mean, I've always been a fighter. I've always wanted to, prove my worth, both in gaming and in business and in life. I mean, to myself. I think the biggest thing about it, at least for me and most of my colleagues back in pro gaming, is we're our own worst enemy. Because when we stop with our professional career, we're competing against ourselves only. And we're competing against how big we can achieve certain things. So I guess the way that translated was that I always wanted to beat my goals. I always wanted to beat that jungle timer. Whenever I made something new, it had to be better than before. It had to be an improved thing. Someone asked me to design something, I had to make it better, much better than what it was. I had to have shown a significant impact. And there are a lot of projects I would love to talk about that I've done under NDA where I have achieved that. And then there are projects where I haven't as well. So of course, it's not a complete success. So I guess the biggest thing that has transferred is just the whole fighting factor. Always want to improve yourself, always want to make yourself better, increasing the jungle timer. Always want to make things more efficient. So anything that makes your work or your colleagues' lives or your own life more efficient, do it. It's about making the most out of your time. So nowadays, I guess I'm competing with my own time. How do I allocate it properly? How do I make sure I get all these things done that I'm supposed to be doing, not only for myself but also for my studios, right? It's not only my own career that I'm taking care of. It's 40 plus investments that we've made. So I also have to have that mentality with all of them too. How do we make sure that they develop on time, they get additional funds on time, we find a publishing deal on time. It's all just a competition to me with myself of achieving those goals. So I guess that's number one, because in this industry, especially working with startups, it's not how do you say it? I mean, I can think that a game is the absolute best in the world, but the consumers might not. Obviously, one thing for my pro career is I have a significant game knowledge because I've played it, I've designed, I've done game design, right? I've played them professionally. I understand the core concept of pretty much every game there is. So I probably have a higher success rate of choosing a successful game, but we're still in the startup industry. And the number one more important thing is that you never know anything. You never know everything.
Right.
You can always learn more. So all that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get, knowledge from people like you. I'm trying to get knowledge from VCs, publishers, the studios themselves. There is always something to learn to improve your own life, whether it's business or, private or whatever. I've made friendships with some of these studios, real life ones, right? So yeah, I guess it's just about making your mark on your own life, make make yourself happier, make your surroundings happier. That's the primary thing that I took from gaming, because that's what I did back then. We grew pro players, and if there's any Dota players listening to this, my team, which we were the best in the world with, all of those players are now playing Dota in professional teams. So Team Liquid has Insania and Mikke. These are the two players that I played with almost my entire career. And Mikke, I actually found in a random public game. I just found him and played with him and invited him to become part of my team. And he has been with me since 2013. So, it's about taking other people around you and like building them up. I was a different kind of pro gamer. Sorry to keep talking, but
it's fine.
Just to put some perspective on it is, I always wanted to help people. So if you look at my YouTube, it's all about educational content, like improving the surroundings, making other people's lives more efficient. I'm practically doing the same thing here, except I'm doing it for startups scene. So instead of teaching people how to, play a hero or play the game, I'm teaching them how to build a company, how to get deals, how to improve it as a business and not just as a game. So regardless of how weird my career has been and being in every single aspect of the gaming industry, they're all kind of intertwined because they're all really the same thing. Like that's my core goal has always been to help the surroundings around me, making it more efficient and my own. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now.
Before jumping into GTR, there's
Yep.
two things that are interesting to me. The first one is, by my experience, most of the pro players I met have very poor understanding of game design. They might have very good understanding of balancing and how they can exploit stuff because that's their job. But people I've met in the fighting game community have, first of all, little knowledge outside of their own sphere. Like they just play their games and nothing else. And second of all, like what makes a good game, what makes a game fun, even for people that are not them. So I guess that's rare. That's a rare characteristic that you have. And the second rare characteristic that you have is that you were extremely good, but also very willing to help. Those not necessarily overlapped in my experience. Like usually the mentors, the teachers that I met were people not at the very top. They were like the top 32 people, but not the top 8, if that makes any sense. Because the top 8 people kind of had a very different hunger and attitude towards the game. Maybe, yeah, sure, if you met them in private, they were willing to help, but they were never, let's say, very active in the community or very active in building stuff. They were mostly just focused on the game. So those are two rare characteristics that you seem to have.
I guess so. But to put it in perspective, though, is that technically what I was doing about teaching people how to play the heroes is not necessarily a good thing for your pro career, because I'm giving like insight into how I think as a player, allowing other people to analyze me, understand how I work, and might actually be able to predict my actions within the game. So that's why a lot of pro gamers don't actually stream. They never stream their team matches. They don't stream their private sessions or their like improving sessions, because they don't want to like give insight to other players. But for me, I thought it as a strength. I'm like, if they know what I'm doing and they know exactly what like every move, every idea that I have, if I just do something completely different when I actually face them, they won't see it coming. That's how I always saw it. So it was like me giving away this advice is just going to make the game better, make the community better. And yeah, it's going to make everyone understand me, but there's nothing that says I have to follow these exact steps during the pro game itself, right?
Right.
So I think people are just a bit narrow-minded when it comes to that. Like you got to look at it from the big picture. Like helping the community build, I'll give you a great example. Like Mikke, the guy, if I didn't find him in a public game, maybe someone else would have. But let's say that no one else found him. He's one of the best players in the world in Dota right now. He was one of the best players in the world in Han as well. And that's all from a coincidence of me finding him. When you throw your name out there, you're helping community builds, there might be that one little kid like he was that, just gets like a cling in his head and comes up with an insane strategy that no one else thought of. And because of that, the metagame changes. You might change your strategy. There's so many players that I've learned from. Like I said, when I was on top, I wasn't just sitting there on my ass. I was trying to figure out how can I make new things, more innovative things. And some of those were stolen, of course. Like the best way to make your game better is by analyzing other people and try to find like loopholes, try to find things to make better. And you do that by looking at other people, and you do that yourself by helping others. Because the more knowledge you spread, the better all the gamers in the community will be, and the next Mikke will show up, or the next 5 Mikkes will show up, right? And you might learn more from them as well. So that's just my own mindset when it comes to the educational part. And what was the other question? Sorry.
Yeah, the other one was about game design. Is that
Yes.
many pro players are not very good with that, let's say.
Yeah, I guess I always just kept an open mind. I'm not one of those gamers who just play the same game over and over, even though I was a pro gamer. I played other games on the side. So I was actually like a top-rated player in StarCraft as well. I was the top 100 EU for a while, and when the original StarCraft 2 came out. I was also like pretty high rank in Age of Empires 2, it's like RTS style games. And I was never really good in Counter-Strike, but I was like black rank on a big Swedish website, which is like the top rank. So I guess I've just always like played all different types of games so that my brain is like available to understand FPS, RTS, MOBAs, different genres. Because when you are a pro gamer, the absolute best thing is if you're 100% focused on your own game. That's the reality. Like I might have even become an even better player if I ignored all other games out there and just played Han. I probably would have been better.
Right.
But my intellect wouldn't have been tickled, so to speak, and I wouldn't have been able to understand like everything that goes on around me. And how I picked up game design was just by becoming a volunteer. I've said this on like 3 podcasts already. It's like when you want to start in the gaming industry, you got to start somewhere, because everything anywhere in life is about connections, and it's about creating connections. Because it's just because you're a nobody, so to speak, doesn't mean someone like me won't pick up your LinkedIn and try to help you out, right? Like, or someone like yourself that you'll just randomly send a tweet that might change someone's life. It's about always getting involved. So that's what I did. I became a volunteer at the age of 14 for Heroes of Newerth. I started helping them with designing heroes. I started helping them with balance, yes, for the public and the pro scene, so that the two separated. I talked about this in Jay Powell's podcast. And yeah, I just tried to be everywhere, everywhere around the games, to try to understand them, try to read into why they were good. And then it's just learning by doing. I mean, my first GDD was not amazing. My second one was better. My third one was better. You got to execute stuff. Like, stop being in ideation stage all the time. Execute and fail. That's how I see it. I have tons of failures in my life that, some of them are public, some of them are not. And that's because I tried to execute. And you can't become a better person without executing and failing, or executing and succeeding.
Right.
So yeah, I guess that's why, I guess.
Speaking of volunteering, this is a topic that I spoke with Theresa Duringer during the last podcast, but right at the end of our podcast, so that wasn't recorded. But I feel like it's a minefield subject that me and her were talking about how it is a minefield subject. And now I'm going to navigate that minefield with you, because you're a pro, So we were both saying how much volunteering has helped many careers. Mine, yours, probably hers, and we were talking about, like, in the past, like one of my previous guests, Chris Wolf, has helped his career as well.
Oh yes, Chris.
Yes, but it's a touchy subject because you work for free, and it's weird if you request people to work for free for you, but at the same time, it's very helpful. Like, I don't know, so many of us have benefited, but it seems to be a touchy subject. So I want you to help me navigate with that. And let's talk both to people who want to become volunteers and to companies who have to deal with them, because it's very easy for companies to exploit people. And so help me out here.
Yeah, so it is indeed a very touchy subject, and like, working for free is something you don't want to do over a long period of time. So I totally understand that. But the baseline is that there are good and bad companies in this world. Volunteering costs you time. So only take volunteer positions where you think you can actually learn something. So if you do end up working with a company who is one of these bad companies, so to speak, where they will exploit you, there is no contract in volunteer work. You can leave at any time. You should learn very quickly if this is a company that appreciates you, appreciates what you do, and if you're actually intellectually challenged by doing this position. And I'm saying that because I actually just hired a volunteer in our own community. So we have a Discord channel for our g.round Discords, not GTR. And there was a girl in there called Cellcat who was super active in our community all the time. And she spoke Spanish. We needed someone who could speak to our Spanish community. So I basically just reached out to her and I told her that, hey, you're doing a great job. Do you want to be like a community moderator and help us out? And she said yes. And she was a community mod for a month, and now she's on a full-time payroll. So all she did was like prove her worth. Like she talked to me, she talked to my colleagues, she was involved, she showed ideas, and then we decided to hire her because our motto is if you do good work, you get paid no matter what you do.
Right.
Like regardless of the process. Yeah, you might not get paid initially, but you execute something that's valuable to us, we are going to pay you. Like no matter what. So even if there is no signed agreement or oral agreement of payment, we're still going to give it to you. So not every company is like this for sure. Like we're probably maybe that's like 20% out of all the volunteer positions, but they are out there. So how to actually navigate through the minefield is like, why are you volunteering for this company? What's the purpose? For me, for Han, it was number one, I wanted to get into game design. I wanted to understand the process of building a hero because when I was 12 and 13 playing Han, I kept trying to think like, why is this hero so badly made? Why do they keep making balance patches for the next one? Like there was a hero that got like 4 like nerfs and buffs over the period of like 3 months, and I was like, that's like a design problem, not a number problem.
Right.
So I became a volunteer in that space because I wanted to understand game design. I wanted to help design a hero to see if I'm being stupid or I'm being obnoxious, and I wanted to work with the developers because I wanted to help Han be a better game because I loved Han. I played it almost every single day. So my purpose was to get intellectually challenged, improve my own knowledge and my own experience, and then like make the game that I love better. So that was very simple. For Chris Wolf, he went to the events, right? Because he wanted to get into the gaming industry. He wanted to be part of it. He wanted to show himself. He wanted to see like how an event was in action. And he went in there to get connections to build a network and prove to people what he's worth. So any volunteer position always needs to have an ulterior motive. If you're coming to me just because you want to know more about the industry, that's not how am I going to help you. But if you come to me like she did and just wanted to be involved, she wanted to help Spanish people understand our platform, that's great. That's awesome. Or a previous volunteer I had that just wanted to understand more about game marketing so that she could become a marketer herself later. Because then I already know, like, if this volunteer comes to me with an ulterior motive, whether or not she or he is paid, I at least know where to direct her or where to guide her. And if the person that you want to volunteer for isn't guiding you, it's not a good company.
Right.
You should always have connections to some part of management or a senior level that will guide you and help you understand why you're doing this. So that's like tips number one. Like if you're not getting guidance, you're not in contact with the seniors, you're not in contact with anyone that can help you actually make the most out of your job, then go find another person to work for. And other than that, like it's such a touchy subject, yeah, like you said, because
it is.
I've been very lucky, like every time I volunteered, I've gotten something in return. So like ultimately later on. So I guess I'm not the best person to give advice because I haven't been in a bad situation like that yet.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, here's another touchy thing. Probably it was the same for you, but I was a volunteer when I was a minor.
Oh yeah, me too.
And you were too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's even weirder, right? I mean, just simply, if you look at it from outside, there's this 14-year-old kid that is helping us with game design. Why is he doing that? Why are we quote unquote using a 14-year-old to help us with a design? Can't we find a better designer? Can we pay him? We're a big company. There's so many questions there, but for me it was very helpful.
Yeah, I'm gonna answer that because they didn't know.
Oh, okay.
So I've always had like a very strong, like a rough voice, even at that age. So, and also my whole my personality or me as a person is a very mature outlook. So I've always spoken like in proper wording, and I was very. I mean, even back when I was 10 years old and I was trying to pick on girls, like invite her for something, I would like write with proper pronunciations, with dots and with commas, which wasn't cool back then. But I've always been very like outspoken and try to be very mature. So I was able to hide it, and they never asked. So
interesting.
Yeah, that's obviously not good on their part as well, because if I'm a company, I will ask who you are. So it was an oversight, I guess. But back then, I wasn't initially paid, right? So it's completely okay. They never paid me until they actually met me first.
Right.
We met the first time at DreamHack, actually. And they were like, yeah, how old are you? I was like, what do you think? He's like, 21, 22. I'm like, I'm 15. So, yeah, it really is a touchy thing, because for me, If it's a community manager kind of thing role, I don't really mind what age they are, I guess. But it depends on like what kind of volunteer position within my organization is it? How much work is it required to have? What kind of people will you be connected to? Because there's the flip side where if you're in a public position like a community manager or tech support or whatever you're volunteering for, there might be a lot of bad words thrown at you, a lot of people trying to make you feel bad.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put a minor in that position.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't really know how to answer that. It's like,
yeah, it's weird. It's fine.
Yeah.
we can move on. Let's talk about something more safe, I guess, which is Global Top Round.
Sure.
Now, Global Top Round, you've been around evangelizing what it is. It's an acceleration program. Instead of me botching it, can you maybe give it the 2-minute pitch? Because the interesting thing about GTR is that, very similar to your past, the structure sort of like a competition, more or less. There's various rounds, there's various levels, quote unquote. Yeah. And there's a top 10 and stuff like that. So can you give it the 2-minute pitch of what it is?
Okay, so we are a global accelerator / investor that basically every single year invests in 10 gaming startups. We do not do technology. We do not do anything else. It's just video games and content. That's number one. We get all of these applicants or studios coming to us by attending on events online and offline, doing podcasts like this, of course, doing speaker sessions and juries. So if you Google my name, there's tons of speeches that I've done that are unrelated to GTR. Because we try to really help the industry and the community by adding as much knowledge as we can wherever we can. So people, they see us outside, they like what they hear, and they reach out to us on email. So last year we had 309 studios from 48 countries around the world applying to our program. You apply to our program by going to globaltopround.com, and right there's an apply button, and you send in your pitch deck, your game, your deck, your description about your team, etc. And then we review this digitally. We take it down to about 50 companies. After 50 companies, we play your game. So we only play the top 50. And once we play the top 50, we take it down to 20. Now, this is the so-called competition you mentioned. So these top 20 will be invited to an offline event called the GTR Annual Conference. This year, it's going to be in Malta. And while you're there, that's where the competition part starts. So the guests is us. It's 30 to 60 publishers and investors in our network that also are there to look at you, look at your pitch, for either right now or for a future potential deal. And you're pitching 7 minutes only. So you have 7 minutes, it could even be 6, I might be messing up there, where you're on stage, you're pitching us your game, your company, etc. And that's the day number 1. And day number 2, there's a demo day where everyone gets to play your game, and you get to vote as well for who you think we should invest in. So you can't vote for yourself, of course, you got to vote for someone else. And we'll get like a good overview of what our audience and what our attendees thinks as well. Once this is done, we announced the top 10 end of that day, the second day. And a couple of weeks later, 1 or 2, we start visiting you. So we fly to all of the countries, all the companies. We meet with you. We talk to you. We make business happen. And a few weeks later, you got our first money. That's a long story short. I think that was 2 minutes.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. It's an acceleration program. So it implies, quote unquote, that you're kind of after companies that are in their infancy. Is that correct?
So yes and no. So we can actually, before it was kind of like a yes, but nowadays we can support much bigger companies. Our biggest one right now is about 32 people. So yeah, what we do is we provide investment first of all, but secondly, we actually are business partners with you and your company. So you can kind of see us as your co-CEO, co-CFO, whatever title you want us to have. It's irrelevant because we're not technically part of your company, but we come in and help you wherever you need it. So that means negotiating with publishers and investors, actually fundraising for you, working with angel groups, reviewing your contracts, reviewing your documentation, like regular documentation, some marketing help, and then, of course, our own investment. So, and then, game design, because of me, when I'm here now, we didn't offer that before. So we can also help you a little bit with production roadmap, designing, certain things and elements of you. And we're basically like part of your company 24/7. You have access to us in Discord, can talk to us anytime, anything that you may have. And we grow every company individually based on what the strategy for that company is. So what that means is that, we're an accelerator, but there is no glorified step A to get to step E.
Right.
It's actually different for every single company because some companies might be at stage 2 already, or maybe even stage 3 already, and some might be completely in their infancy. So we're able to support you whether or not you're a pre-seed investment for us, which means that only you as the founders have invested money, or if there's been a little bit of investment from someone else, that's completely okay. We can cover all of it. Because of all of us having very different backgrounds and different expertise, like the management team, we're able to support anything within your business and like build up a company strategy for you so that you know what's going to be happening over the next 6 months first, and then another 6 months, and then years to come. Yeah.
And I assume you guys are taking a share in the company. Is that right?
Yes. So we take equity share in the company between at the absolute maximum. So no matter what, we will never own more than 11% ourselves. That's the maximum.
Interesting. And I'm a curious person, so I have to ask: is your strategy as GTR a exit strategy based? So you're looking to sell your 10% at some point, or you're just looking to super long term, just building successful companies that eventually will funnel you money?
No, so we have again, we're a very transparent company. So any listener of this podcast, you can always reach out to me and ask any questions if you may wish so. But yeah, no. So number one, the equity is it's not a lot of money. Like our first investment is only 40K. The second one is 60, and then we can do a 300K round after that as well. So let's say 400K is the total from us in 3 different stages. So the initial money you get from us is like us putting skin in the game.
Right?
Like we're here to show we believe in you. We want to be part of your company, and we're going to buy a little bit of equity. But because we're pre-seed investors, and because most of these companies are in their infancy, by the time we reach the Series C or whatever, we'll be insanely diluted, and we'll be lucky enough to have like 1 or 2, sometimes 5, sometimes 8. We hope to be as little dilution as possible, of course. Just making an example there. So most companies we still own like a big share in. But the point is that we invest in companies that aren't really 100% a company yet, right?
Right.
Not some of them are, of course, but most of them aren't. So what that means is that you have a game, you might have launched a couple titles, or this is even your first one, and you need that success case to scale your company. So that's where we come in. We help you do that success case, and then you start scaling with you. But because we're so early, it's not like we can exit in 2 years or 4 years or 5 years. So we have a 5 to 7 standard like VC exit strategy, of course, where we can potentially exit like 5 or 7 years later. But the way that we actually support ourselves, like during this whole time, as your in-house consultant, so to speak, is that we have a revenue share on the title.
I see. Okay.
So, and I want to be very clear with this because I know people generally don't like a whole revenue share model. Some do, some don't. There is no binding agreement where we own you or own your company or the IP itself or any sequel. So it's a title by title basis. So the title that you apply to us with, that's the first one we work together on. And then if you want to keep working with us on more titles, as full-time consultants for you, basically, then we can negotiate game by game.
Right.
So that's basically like how we support ourselves in the short term. And in the long term, it's the equity. So even if for some reason, you don't want to sign a second game with us, we're still equity investors. We're still going to help you. So it's not like, we terminate any sort of agreement or talking with us. And in the last 5 years of doing 47 investments, only one single studio has denied a second title because everyone else has been happy with us. And that's because they got funded in concept stage. So before they even had an MVP.
Good for them.
Yeah, that's completely okay, So for us, we're here side by side with all of our companies. You guys also have access to our other investments. And I always say this, I've been a streamer, I've been a speaker for a long time. What I say, yeah, it's going to sound good, but it's always better to hear it from the people we work with, right? So I always say, reach out to some of our investments that we work with. Reach out to Dream Harvest from UK, for example, Rogue Snail from Brazil. Ask them about us, Ask them like, is Pontus like a complete idiot? Is this all lies? Reach out to our investments and talk to them. That's what I always say, because there are a lot of bad accelerators out there. And technically, we're not really an accelerator. We're not really an investor. We're kind of business partners in a way. But there needs to be a label, which is why it's labeled as an accelerator.
Right.
And you got to be careful about who you partner up with, especially very early. So when I was on Jay Powell's podcast, I recommend anyone to listen to that as well. We talked about, picking the right early partner, picking the right accelerator, because there are a lot of like bad ones out there. I just recently, I'll flip the numbers a little bit so the person doesn't know who I'm talking about. But there is an accelerator out there that basically takes 45% revenue share of your title.
Oof.
And they only invest a little bit below 200,000 USD. And that's just completely ridiculous. So be very careful about who you partner with, and also make sure that you read your grants, because I also had a studio that I loved so much, man. Like I really wanted it to be a GTR accelerator, but they signed a grant which was worth very little money, and gave that grant a rev share for all eternity.
Oh no.
And it was a pretty high number. Yeah. So be careful, guys, when you sign your early partners.
Yeah, indeed. Um, it, does your structure and the way you work and all your strategy influence the kind of studios and titles you're after? In the sense that, for example, let's say that you are quote unquote biased towards games that can explode. So let's say lifestyle games or mobile games and stuff like that, or you're looking at everything.
We're actually looking at everything except AR and VR, and I know that Albert, if he's listening to this, that he's going to hate me, but I don't like VR, Albert. That's for you. So I don't review AR and VR, but we have a person within the company that loves it. But generally, you're going to have to blow our minds for us to even be interested in AR and VR games. So that's like the one change that we have, because we have 3 VR investments already. We were a bit too early. We were still supporting them today, and we hope they're going to succeed, but we're a little bit careful around those two.
Right.
Everything else we're completely open to. So about 3 years ago, we were more mobile focused. Now I would say we're more PC focused, and that's not exactly intentional. It's more like I'm tired of hearing hyper casual company pitches.
Yeah.
I want something with a little bit more structure. I want a company that wants to build something, not build 20 games a month. So I know that I want to have a hyper casual investment in GTR. We do want one. But it's like there's so many, and I'm not really sure how to evaluate a hyper casual company, because it's just a bunch of terrible prototypes, and one of them might work.
Yeah.
So we are reviewing right now like 2 hyper casual studios, I think, but generally we don't really do that. And other than that, is there anything? We don't do sexual content, of course. What else? I think that's pretty much. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's how open we are. It's like any country, any genre. Of course, we all have our internal biases, and of course, we do know the market well enough that certain games will be, certain trends will be more successful. But we're in this for the long term, right? We're here to work with a company. We're not here to work with just one game.
Right.
We want to be part of you for a long time. So if you can make a good game now, then you're going to be able to make good games in the future. So we kind of like look at what have you been able to create so far, and we look at it in a long-term perspective that, okay, let's launch this game in the next 12 months, and then let's start working on the second title together. So yeah, we're very, very open, you could say. Yeah.
So personally, my attitude. So I've been at the head of a development studio for a while now, and I've seen kind of both sides of the coin. I've talked with many publishers. I've talked with many developers. And I speak often with some colleagues, and my attitude towards, let's say, pitches have changed quite a bit, in the sense that it is now very hard for me to get super excited about a pitch, just because the market is so hard. So if 10 years ago, during the limbo phase, during the during the quote unquote golden age of indie games, you came to me with a pitch of an interesting game, I would be like, man, this is going to be a smashing hit. Nowadays, I don't know.
Yes.
You come to me with a game and I'm like, neat. Let's hope for the best. Because you go on Steam and you get depressed. Like, you see very, very, very good games. You do the numbers on their reviews and they're like, this 10 years ago, this would have been a smashing hit. And also, like, many games are going to be forgotten, sadly. Carry On is an amazing game. I don't know in 10 years how many people will remember about Carry On. But anyway, how is it for you now that you're looking at these pitches? Do you have a similar attitude, or you still get?
No, 100%, man. Like, it's no. We have a term internally where we said nobody plays God in gaming,
right?
And that's why we started g.round, because I mean, I know that I'm good at evaluating projects, but I'm never going to be 100%, maybe not even 50% right. We have 10 investments per year. And I can love these games so much, I want to play them my entire life, like each and every one of them. But like maybe only 2 are successful, right? Because it's no longer a matter of a good game. It's a matter of the strategy behind it.
Yeah.
Like, who are you targeting? Who is your target market? The target market and your target customers is the number one most important thing right now, not the quality of the game. If you've created a game with an audience in mind, you're going to be more successful than a game that is just really good and you haven't thought about the target. So, it's insanely hard, and I look at pitches so differently now from what I used to. And on that mark, that's also why we're open to everything as GTR, because we don't know what genre, what's going to be the next battle royale, right? We don't know that.
Yeah.
What's going to be the next genre to take over the world. So that's why all of our investments are very, very spread out and different. So just to calculate last year's investments, for example, we have a 2D Dark Souls game. We have a 3D top-down action RPG base defense with MOBA elements. We have an RTS RPG simulator. We have a MOBA mobile game. We have a crazy cool 2D Metroidvania kind of game from Philippines. We have a 3D, like really big budget Souls-like game. We have a complete simulator, like a emotional simulator kind of thing.
Interesting.
Not Sim style, but kind of like a top-down Sims-ish, where but it's much more dark.
Okay.
Which is super cool. And then we have like a one-tap super casual mobile game. And then we have a crazy top-down zombie shooter kind of thing, which is like a smaller project. So, and the sizes of all of these vary from 200,000 USD to 3.5 million. So you can see, like, we're not targeting you based on the budget of your game. We're targeting you based on the scope and, you know, what is your target market, like, and how well do we think it's going to succeed in that market.
Right.
So we're literally open to everything, and our investments, you know, prove my words. It's like very, very mixed, you could say.
And I don't know how much you were involved in the initial stages or in the initial discussions of GTR, but can you maybe give a little bit of an insight of the strategy of, for example, let's say, okay, we know we're going to lose money for the first X years, but then we're going to turn around, or we're just going to hope, or we know that we're going to make some money back. How much... what is the correct word? Is like how much a method there is to the madness of, let's say, investing in games.
Yeah, so the company was founded by a guy named Danny Wu. He was the first founder, and yeah, he created our company because, again, he wanted to do something different in the industry. He wanted to help startups grow, and he wanted to make the next Supercell, so to speak. And he already has he's already involved in regular startups, so to speak, on the other side in Korea. And this kind of came from his old career. He was an ex-VC, and he was, you know, looking down on all these companies. You know, they were trying to find the best type of deal. They were in it for the long term. But he realized that that's not really working. And it's also, you know, like kind of taking an exploit on some of the developers, you know, being really strong-armed with the way that you negotiate with them, that he didn't like. So he founded GTR with the basis of creating a systematic process of how we pick our games. And then, yeah, we're going to be losing money for the first couple of years for sure. But all we really need, like theoretically or like mathematically, is one single game to be successful out of the 10 to make, you know, all of our investments back, so to speak.
Right.
Now, that's not our target. Our target is, of course, to at least get 3 or 5 of them per year. Well, I would love the 10, of course, but that's never going to happen. So 3 to 5 is like our target of finding like successful companies. And like what the model has been built up over time. So in the beginning, you know, when we were a smaller team, it was like equity only with a little bit of business stuff. And then, you know, then the more people we added, the more expertise we got, the more different backgrounds, the more services we were able to add to build this entire ecosystem that we have now. And we've also learned from our mistakes. So in 2015 and 2016, it was more mobile focused because that was the trends. But then we realized, you know, that actually it's not the right strategy. Mobile might make more money and there might be, you know, a much more massive market. But the PC market is more, what's the English word? It's more of a community. It's more like close, you know, like once you get their attention, once you prove them, like, you know, your game, you're going to have a fan base for a really long time. So in like long-term company building, we need a portfolio that has that cool trendiness, mobile games, you know, like trying to make money. And then we have that whole long-term strategy of finding companies that we can build maybe 5 titles together with.
Right.
So our strategy has honestly always pretty much been the same. The only difference has been, you know, the games that we've targeted. But our goal is to work with companies for 5, 10, 20 titles and work with them for a long time. And then each and every game, you know, the more games they make, because they're new companies, the better they will be, and we'll start, you know, getting our revenue over time. So that's why sometimes, you know, we don't project revenue from one of our companies for the first 1 or 2 or even 3 years. And that's, you know, not great in terms of a general business strategy, you might think, but because we have 10 companies, you know, and other things that we're doing, it's actually a very solid strategy. And because we work with the companies so closely and we're like building a relationship with them, we're learning along the way. Like I said, like I don't know everything, not even remotely close. I will never call myself that I'm super smart or anything like that. I would say that I'm still in my infancy and I have much more to learn. So every year when we invest, every year when we work with new people, new countries, we learn more and more and more, and we try to improve our processes. We try to support them more so that hopefully, maybe next year we'll have 7 successful companies out of 10. And, we'll be able to pick a much stronger lineup. Yeah.
Just to shift gears, I didn't find this information, so you'll have to excuse me. How old are you?
Oh, I'm 26.
Okay, you're extremely young, and I'm always fascinated with extremely young, successful people. But that's not what interests me right now. What interests me is the fact that you are a very hungry person. You're a person that always chases kind of the next thing. You were always involved in something. Your LinkedIn page is like, I don't know, I have to scroll for years to get to the bottom of it. But you're always after something.
Yeah.
And what is interesting to me, in your quest is where you're going to be after. Now, I know that you do other stuff on the side. You do investment. You still stream and stuff like that, occasionally, at least. But what I'm interested in is, does your work at GTR is your work at GTR diverse enough, let's say, in what you do day to day, that satisfies all of your hunger, or do you still feel the need to chase after something new?
That's a very interesting question. You're the first person that has asked me that. No, definitely, at least right now, and I do believe for years to come, GTR is offering everything that I need, and that's because I'm able to work with all of these different companies and I'm able to show them. Like my goal is very simple. I want to make sure that 5 companies, and then 7, and then 9, and then maybe even 10 will succeed every year because of what I'm able to support them with, because of what GTR is able to support them with. So I'm constantly chasing, the ability to help these companies succeed. And that alone in itself is a huge feat. It's very hard, takes a lot of time, and it's like really a lot of pressure, right?
Right.
But on the flip side, because if I only did that, then of course, maybe I would get stuck in a wall eventually. But we also have, the g.round platform that we're working on, like trying to build up that community, trying to help even more startups. And at least right now, I am in a place where I'm able to get, everything that I need from both of our companies in order to personally grow, get better at what I do, and, eventually might lead to something else, right? Like, you're asked what my target is. I guess, like, in the future, I've been CEO 3 times now. I'm probably going to be aiming to be CEO again. So that's going to be my target in the next couple of years. I'm not in any rush whatsoever. It comes when it comes, and it comes when I feel like I'm ready, and when the business partners feels like you're ready. So, and I guess that's my next step again, is going back and leading a company again, because that's really what I like to do. It's like taking care of all of your employees, but also all the surroundings again. Our studios, our communities, and everything, and educating people. That's what I stand for. And I'm able to do all of that here because I have the whole business side of it. I have the investing side of it, like within the company, right? I have the helping the startups to grow. So that's also there. Now with g.round, I have the community building. I have the influencers that we work with. So that's my old career. So I get to stay connected to that too. And then I get to travel a lot. And I love to travel. I love to meet new cultures, try local food, try street food in Brazil. Meet the Brazilian government. We're very close to Eliana Russi from there. And I get to meet all these teams in person, and you get to see the product that you've helped build, right? Like right now, for example, I'm working very closely with one of our American investments, Big Moxie Games. Technically, they're Brazilian, I guess. Like 99% of the staff is Brazilian. But like when I met that team, the moment we were going to decide whether to invest in them or not, we had such a good time. We were having wine, Brazilian barbecue. I got to see all of these people. And now we're here almost a year later, and the product has improved massively. And if it wasn't for COVID, I would be there again with them to, meet the new members that we built. Because when I was there was 8 people. Now there's 13. Like you get to see the new talent coming in. You get to see the old talent, how they develop, how they grow as people. And for me, that's just amazing. And at the same time, I get to be on speaker sessions and panels talking about other subjects. Like most of my speaker sessions are not related to GTR or g.round because we just talk about random things. And as long as I can spread knowledge and help people while at the same time learning new knowledge myself, I'm in a happy space. So yeah, the short answer to your question is that yes, right now within GTR and g.round, I'm definitely getting my full fill. But I mean, I still talk to my old friends. For example, we don't have a camera on this podcast, right? But right behind me, MSI just sent me their latest laptop, and DX Racer sent me an unreleased series I can't talk about to take a look at. So I still work with other companies occasionally. Like saying hi, doing like small things with. Yeah. So I'm good, and that's a good question. I haven't heard that in a long time.
Well, and if I may, this might get maybe too personal. I don't know, but
Sure.
I'm asking just because I'm going through that phase in my personal life, where I'm settling down, getting a dog, getting a car, doing that quote unquote adult stuff.
Yeah.
And for a while, my life was so dominated by work, and it kind of still is, and kind of still is my focus. But that side of my life is also creeping in, quote unquote.
Mhm.
Is that in anywhere in your vision? Is it far away? Or do you think about it at all?
Yeah, so again, very good question. I don't mind going personal. I mean, I used to be a streamer, right? So personal is pretty much what there's like a fine line,
Right.
Because they want to know everything about your life. Where you go to the toilet, where you are right now. It's like, okay, back off. But questions like this is okay. So, yeah, if you asked me 6 months ago, I might have had a different answer. But I basically just got out of a 3.5 year long relationship where that might have ended in settling down.
Mm-hmm.
But now that is over, I have no current plans of settling down. And with the expansion of GTR and g.round, because we're about to close our Series A, I'm going to be quote unquote stuck in Bangkok for at least another 2 years. Building up the office here. Because I lead the operation team of g.round and the accelerator, right? And the staff is here in Bangkok. So I have a team of now 12 people. So yeah, I got to be here for another 2 years. And I love Thailand. Don't get me wrong. I think Thailand is amazing. And everyone that I know, or all of my old fans, know that I like Thailand. But I don't want to raise a family here. At least not right now. That's my current mindset. It might change. But I feel like the moment I do want to settle down, I do want to, get a car, get a house, etc., it will be in Europe. And currently, for the last 2 years, I was always planning to go to Spain this year. So before we were talking about, before I joined GTR in 2021-ish, I was going to live in Spain. With GTR now, quote unquote, again, like keeping me here, which I'm obviously totally fine with because I love it here now more than 2 years ago. I'm planning to stay here for 2 years and then go up and set up our European office in Spain. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck with that. We did just a little over an hour. It was an amazing podcast. I had a lot of fun. Do you have any last words for our listeners?
No. This was an interesting conversation. I think we could keep talking for like 10 hours. But
yeah, indeed.
Last words. I'm not very good at those because I talk too much. I guess if you are a game developer and you have a really cool game and you need to grow your company, you need business expertise, come to us. That's what we do. That's what we're good at. So globaltopround.com, get over there and apply and send us your game. Would love to take a look. Secondly, if you're a studio that's looking for, market insight, you want to figure out where to launch your game, you want to get your game tested by tons of gamers, we have g.round.co. You can go there. That's our g.round platform that is in pre-alpha. We're sending out the press release probably next week, so it's not like 100% public yet, but it's coming out. So we're looking for awesome games there as well to test and give to our gamers. And thirdly, on a more personal note, now that you guys got to know me a little bit more, you can tell that my life has been a little bit everywhere. And yeah, if you find me on LinkedIn as Pontus Mähler, I've experienced a lot of things, and the only advice I can give you is that always push to chase your dreams. Don't stay in a position that you absolutely hate unless absolutely necessary to, like, you have huge finance problems and you need the money. If you have the option and the time, try to find what you love. Try to find something that you're really intrigued by, that will, like tickle you intellectually. It will grow you as a person, whether it's volunteer, paid or not. Do it. And I will always recommend everyone, and this is to my friends in Sweden, go travel.
Yes.
Meet other people, like build a network. Go to gaming events. Like hand out business cards. Make a business card for yourself, just you as a person. Like start putting your name out there and showing people who you are, because that's how random opportunities, like a Swedish guy living in Bangkok for 4 years working for a Korean company, happens.
Yes.
This was all coincidence. I would keep talking forever, but that's basically, just put yourself out there, do things, chase your dreams, and chase them properly. Don't just like chase something that's unachievable. I always use a mind map, something you learn when you're 2 years old in school. Make a mind map of pros and cons of your current job, where you're going to be in 5 years, and where this job will take you in those 5 years. So if you make a simple mind map, you can be like, if I stay in this position, where am I going to be in 5 years? What are the pros and what are the cons? And now do that with 3 other ideas that you have, or 3 other things that you want to do. And you're literally going to see by paper alone what your next step should be.
Yes.
That's my advice, I guess.
Yeah, that is some great advice. And I would keep talking for 10 hours more. Pontus is on Twitter at Zlapped.
Yep.
And thanks again.
No, thank you as well. It was a pleasure being here, and I love what you're doing, so keep it up.
Thank you. And I'll see you all next time. Take care.